Good morning, boys and girls. It is time for Module 4, Lesson 4. And today we are going to be talking about parallel lines, and we're going to try to define and construct parallel lines. And before we do that, I'm going to go to the whiteboard and we're going to review a little bit about perpendicular lines and introduce some vocabulary before we start. Okay. The last time we were together, we talked about perpendicular lines. And if you remember, to draw a perpendicular line, you take your straight edge and you draw a line, and then you take your template, your right angle template, and you hold it against it. And then you can use that template to draw a line that comes out or even extends through. And that's how you know your lines are perpendicular, because they have right angles. And remember, when we are writing perpendicular lines, we want to signal to the people that we're writing for that AB, line AB, is perpendicular to line CD. We use a symbol that looks like that right in the middle. Today we're going to be talking about parallel lines, and when we're doing parallel lines, it also has a symbol. And I'm just going to throw up a quick pair of parallel lines, and an easy way to make them is to take a ruler, well, if you can hold it straight enough, take a straight edge and draw two lines on the opposite side without moving it, which you can see I moved it a little. So this line's thick and chunky. But anyway, if these were my two lines, and I had F, G, H, and I, and I know that they're parallel because I drew them on the opposite sides of this ruler, but I'm going to tell you how to measure them in just a second to make sure. Line FG is parallel to line HI, and we mark that simply with two parallel lines like that in between. So this symbol is perpendicular and this symbol is parallel. Now, to make sure I have those lines parallel, I can take my straight edge and hold it across those lines, and then my right angle template. And if I line that one up, we can see that that's a perfect right angle. And if I slide it over without moving the straight edge, that line is also at a perfect right angle. That is how I know for sure that those two lines are parallel. I've just erased a little bit of it, but we're going to do that on some paper here. Let me put my camera down. So here I have lines A, B, and C, D. Move the camera up. Do they look parallel to you? They don't really to me either. So what I was saying about testing is to take your ruler or your straight edge and put it across the two lines. Take your right angle template and line it up with one of those lines or line segments, if the case may be. Now, without moving your straight edge, slide that right angle template down until the vertex of your template meets that next line. And if that doesn't line up perfectly with that right angle template, you do not have parallel lines. So line segment AB is not perpendicular to line segment CD. Let's try EG, EF, and GH. So I'm going to take my ruler or my straight edge and set it across the two lines. And I'm going to take my right angle template and I'm going to lay it up against this line and the ruler so that I've formed a perfect right angle. And now, without moving the straight edge, slide your right angle template over to the next line. And if that line lines up on your right angle template, we do have a parallel line. So EF is parallel to GH. H. Now, the last set I have are I, J, and K, L. To me, I know just by looking at them they're not right angle, or they're not parallel, but I'm going to test it out anyway. I'm going to take my, sorry, Francis is crying. I'm going to take my straight edge and my right angle template and line it up nice and tight with the first line segment, and then slide it over to the next line segment, and I know for sure that that is not a right angle, and I do not have parallel lines. Now, I think that eventually, if these were actually lines that continued on forever and ever, these would intersect. Same with A, B, and C, D. If I were to continue this on for quite some ways, I would see that eventually they too would intersect. All right, now, when we are dealing with shapes, the one thing that we're going to need to know, well, when we are doing shapes, is how to mark which sides of the shape are parallel to one another. So I'm going to take this Post-it and I am going to I'm going to trace it onto my paper for this purpose. All right, so now I have a square. My square has 4 points. I'm going to label them point R, S, T, and U. All right, now I want to know, sorry, I'm way off camera. I want to know if these sides of this square are parallel. So I'm going to take my straight edge. I'm going to line up my right angle template with the first line segment TU, and I'm going to slide it all the way up to the top to line segment RS, and sure enough, those lines are parallel because they both form right angles. On my shape, one way to note that RS is parallel to TU is to make a little arrow in the middle of the line like that. This tells me that this side is the same as this side. They are parallel. Now, let's try the other two lines. Because I have a square, I'm pretty much sure that they are parallel unless I made a mistake drawing. So, line segment RT is definitely parallel to line segment SU. So, I don't want to use the same arrow because these two lines are parallel. This isn't parallel to that, and this isn't parallel to that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw 2 arrows because these two, I'll know that these two are parallel and these two are parallel. So with all of this knowledge, you should have no problem doing your problem set. I'm going to start it with you and we'll see how far we get. I would like you to do it along with me and then do the homework and then try the exit ticket that's going to be listed in the template. Okay, I'm back and I have now Module 4, Lesson 4 problem set. Remember, the Module 4 is in the back half of your Module 3-4 workbook. Now, similar to the page where we drew perpendicular lines or traced perpendicular lines, we are going to trace parallel lines in problem number 1. So in number 1, I see that this is parallel to this. Pretty much on a piano, all of these are parallel to one another. I know that this black key and this black key. Let's see, I think this is parallel to this. And inside here, this little line is parallel to that little line. And over here on the notebook, I see this is parallel to this. Take a look at this clock. This is a little trickier, this little stopwatch. I do see a set of parallel lines. I'm wondering if you do too. It's a lot of round shapes. But if you take a look on this particular part up here, this and this are parallel to one another. I'm going to let you finish number 1 on your own. Now number 2 says, how do you know that 2 lines are parallel? What did we say? Well, we know that parallel lines can go on forever and never touch. But how did we test them? What did we do? We used our right angle template, right, to determine that the 2 lines would never touch. Therefore, lines are parallel if they never intersect. And number 3, they want you to use the grids to construct your own parallel lines. And one of the ways they ask you to do that, it's kind of cool. I read in the conversations that we could have had if we were together, was to take a look at where this line starts and then choose another place for the next line to start. I'm going to choose right here. And now take a notice at what this line does. This line went over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, and then it went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So if I take this line over 6 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I take my straight edge and connect them, I'm going to have parallel lines because I made them go in the very same pattern on this grid. I want you to try that method with this line over here by yourself. And the same thing on here. If I take a look at this line segment, I want something parallel, so I'm going to drop down 2 segments, and then I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to put a dot, and I am going to connect it. Now, the way you can test, don't forget, is to put your straight edge down and to make sure that there's a right angle on this side and a matching right angle up there. All right, try this line by yourself. Over here on the section with the shapes, there are lots of different angles. I'm going to fold my book over. There are lots of different angles and sides inside of these shapes. Your job is to determine which sides of these shapes are perpendicular. A is done for us. Because this is a rectangle, we know going into it that AB is going to be perpendicular to CD and that AC is going to be perpendicular to BD. But take a look at shape B. I've got some funky angles here. They are not right angles. So I'm going to put my ruler down across those shapes, or my straight edge. I'm going to take my right angle template and line it up with this line segment, scoot it up to this line segment. Okay, I know that this one is parallel to this one. But now if I take my ruler and I line it up with on these 2 shapes, and I put my right angle template, let's see, on here, and I slide it down to here, these 2 are not perpendicular. So I'm going to write HI is perpendicular to JK. But I am not going to put that HJ and IK are perpendicular because they're not. So you're going to go through the rest of these shapes and determine which sides of these shapes are parallel. I'm sorry, I said perpendicular, and I meant to say parallel. Then on number 5, you are going to draw your own parallel lines with, or number 7, sorry, with your straight edge and your right angle template.